Men det virker bare også efter rigtig men også, er det også i forhold til, hvor det stopper?
You can't see it.
Men så er det bare meget interessant med facilitet.
That's right. I tell me this. What is
Patrick, hvis I har lyst til at sidde deroppe. Yes, welcome. It has been 3 long days, and now we have another long day, but at least the last session will be the farewell dinner, so, but it has also been good days, but I hope we can get some energy again when we start on this double session, which goes over 2 sessions. We had two, I think it was recently, we were on a trip to London, and we met a lady there who has a blog called Too Fat to Run. She's doing blogs for making obese women run, and there often they don't like to be seen in the public because they're really obese, and she assists them, and she then had this problem that they should run some intervals or something, and she advised them to go to the stadium, but they said, no, we don't want to go to the stadium to run, because we don't like to be seen when we run. And then she said, but the best place you can go and train if you don't want to be seen is actually the local track stadium, because there's no one there. and in fact, sometimes it's the same with when we look at facilities, shooting facilities, or some halls, even in rural areas, football pitches, in urban areas, often they're very much in use. Tennis, the country is a country of mausoleums in this country, because the sport has declined a lot. So it is not just, if you want to promote sport, it's not just a question of facilities. Because as Peter will now tell you, and I will take his presentation away from him, but it's, that is a basic for this, this session. And why are we looking at Aarhus then? It's because it's quite easy when we are in Aarhus to look at how we can integrate urban development and also recreational areas into the provision of sport and physical activity, but also because some interesting things are going on here, and we have some very interesting speakers to tell about. So I won't take more time, and we'll just go straight to the point. And Peter is my colleague from the Danish Institute for Sports Studies, is doing a lot of research into sports facilities, and I guess he'll tell you more himself.
Yeah, thank you. I just need the remote here, and then I think we'll be on our way. Okay, while you locate that, I'll just start to introduce a little bit to my presentation here. I will build a little bit upon some of the presentations we had yesterday. We heard some interesting things about how we see development in people's sports participation. We see a lot of people beginning to do recreational sporting activities. And what I will focus on in this presentation is how does that make an impact on how we think of sports facilities, and how we should rethink them as well. And what I want to look more into is also, you can call the link between sports participation on the one side and the use of sports facilities or sites for sports on the other side. And I have a picture of a guy here running, and you could ask yourself, what is he running towards? And that's one of the main things I'll focus on. How do we support participation for people like this guy doing recreational activities, doing it in a light kind of way, and using the outdoors. But at the same time, I think it's important to stress that we also need to remember that we also have a lot of people using the traditional sporting facilities, and I'll come back to this. So we need to look at different perspectives and have different angles to look at. No, it's fine. Just to give you a brief introduction to the Danish case, I know some of you are probably quite familiar with it, but just to start out, municipalities are very central for Sport for All in Denmark. They build and they operate sports facilities, and a lot of the money that comes from municipalities go to these sports facilities. Sports clubs can use sports facilities for free or for minor use, and also public school, they use these sports facilities. And I'll come a little bit back to showing you some numbers on what kind of facilities do we actually talk about. And then we have seen the last years, and that was some of the things that Henrik introduced as well, that we have seen an increased demand for research on sports facilities in municipalities. You want to know, what do you get out of the money you invest in this area? Can you use the sports facilities better? And what are the wishes of the population? And I've just taken 4 reports over here that we made in the spring of 2015 in different municipalities in Denmark, and we actually see an ongoing demand for reports like this, and I'll come a little bit back to some of the content of these reports as well. This is the starting point in my presentation. I talk about the link between different sporting participation and different activities, and of course the use of sporting facilities. So I think it's important to look at what kind of sports activities do people do. And here you can see the dark bars is children's use, 7 to 15 years of age, and is from the last survey of sports participation done in 2011. And the light blue are adults, and this is the biggest sports among children and adults. And if we look to the left, or if you look to the left of the chart here, we see the biggest sports for children is what I would call traditional sporting activities. It's football, swimming, gymnastics, handball, and badminton. They're not so popular among adults. Perfect. Over here, yes. And we see that many of these activities are actually organized in local sports clubs as well. 86% of all children are members of a sport club in Denmark. Pretty extraordinary, very, very high number of children. And then on the right, I put some of the biggest sporting activities when we look at adults, and we see it's very different activities. It's what we're told yesterday about the recreational activities, and people do it here primarily on their own. They can do it with friends, but it's not organized by a club as we see for children. So the short story here is that on the one hand we have a pattern of traditional sports among children, and on the other hand we have quite different activities when we look at adults. And here I've taken some new numbers from the 4 municipalities I introduced in the beginning, and you can see the name of them here. It's Varde, Halsnæs, Gladsaxe and Ballerup. You probably don't know them that well. I can tell you that we have pretty different municipalities here. Gladsaxe and Ballerup are quite urban, while Varde and Halsnæs are more rural areas. And the point I want to show you here is the change from traditional sporting activities towards the more recreational activities, focus on training the body and so on. It goes quite rapidly, and in the teen years we see quite a big change in activities. We see here different age groups, and what we see, the traditional sporting activities, football, swimming and gymnastics, either they fall, decline in participation rates, while fitness here in all of these different municipalities have a rapid increase in participation rates. And then back to the important thing, what does this mean for the use of sports facilities? Here I have the kind of facilities, again, that children and adults they use. And if we look to the left, you can say that the traditional sports, as I told you, that children they exercise, they fit into these kind of traditional sporting facilities as well. The ordinary sports hall, the special hall room, the special outdoor football pitch is one example. Henrik, he mentioned tennis courts and so on, and we have the gymnastics hall as well. And if we look to the right again, we see that where people, or where the adults, they go to do exercise, they choose to go outdoor, or they use, if they have to go inside, they use the private fitness center. It can also be a non-profit fitness center, but that's the trend. And a lot of adults as well, they run on the pathways as well. I know that Jakob, he will talk a little bit about what is what kind of facilities do we see at the sea. So I just want to mention here that it's also a place where people they go to do sports as well. So, just to come to a midway conclusion in my presentation here, we have two different challenges, and when we need to rethink sports facilities, we have to do it in different ways with different strategies. And when we look at the children, we have to say, how do we do better with the sporting facilities we already got? Can we get a better use of them? And it's the football pitches, the sports hall, the swimming halls, and so on, as I showed. The adults, we have quite a different task here, I think, or the municipality has. It's about what kind of sporting facilities can be made to support the recreational sporting activities that we see is very dominant among adults. And I've just put down here, should municipalities support adult participation? In the questionnaires we have put forward to the different municipalities, we have surveyed during the last years. We have asked this, and a lot of the adults, the majority of them say yes, that is a task of the municipality to do. Here I just want to focus a little bit about the task of doing better with what we already got. Here I have a map. And what this map shows is a percentage of use of sports halls in different municipalities across Denmark. This is in the evening or late afternoon until the evening, and this number here, Bade as an example, shows the amount of hours from 4 to 10 p.m. that are actually used for sporting activities. So you could say that 50% of the hours during two weeks here on weekdays have been used for activities. So something is going on in these facilities, but there is also a lot of time not used. And here we have to take into consideration that a lot of these halls have actually been booked for around 100% of the time. So a lot of people don't show up, and it means some kind of a demand, and that is of course a problem. And I've just tried to give you some example of what do we need to do when we need to rethink the use of these facilities. We need to have better booking system. Maybe we have to use some kind of incentives, not just economic incentives, it could be other incentives as well. And we need to manage the sports facilities. Yesterday we were told a lot about how For Global, they count a lot of things around different sporting facilities that get a lot of intelligence on the use and the users of sporting facilities, and that's I think that's very important to have a lot of these information to do better with the use of sporting facilities. And here I want to address the task, so to say, or how to rethink and maybe also redefine sports facilities for adults. Here again I have the 4 different municipalities that we've been surveyed in the spring of 2015, and here we have asked the adult population what kind of sports facility or place would you like to do sport. And what we see here is that it more or less reflects where they actually do sport. But just to come forward with 2 points, when we talk about the outdoor and the nature, 63% of the adults in these municipalities, they agree that the municipality should do something extra with the outdoors to make it more accessible to do sports activities or recreational activities, and I'll come back to what that could be in a little while. Also, the normal sports hall is not that much used at the moment, but when we ask the adults, would you like to be a part of a team with a coach where activities could vary from time to time, there was actually a wish to do that, and that could maybe be something about trying to turn around the way you do sport. Yesterday we were told a lot about this pyramid of way of thinking sports activities. Maybe we need to also integrate the church model of thinking of sports activities also in the more traditional sporting activities to meet the needs of and the wishes of adults. And here I have I have two short examples. Just at the end of my presentation. This is called Rudersdalroden, and I know that Rudersdal municipality is actually in the room. This is a good example of how you pretty easily can do something with the outdoor, and we made our a survey among the inhabitants in Rudersdal a couple of years ago, and we can actually see that this has had an impact. The outdoor is more used in Rudersdal municipality than elsewhere in Denmark. They have made 9 different themes out in the outdoors, in the woods and so on. And one of them is to put up light poles and have a skiing track. Actually, it is when there is ski or snow lying, then you can take skis on and you can go around the 2.5 kilometer route. But you can also use it for running as well. Another example, also from Rudersdal, is trying to build up a meeting place or a place where you can do triathlon as well. You can go from the water, and then this is an idea they're working on, and then you can go to a changing zone and so on. But it's also a meeting point. So this is just quite simple examples of how you can do something with the outdoors that connects with the sports participation among adults. And I think it's important to stress here that this is also very important to have good communication about it and make awareness about it. And the last example I want to draw in my short presentation here is called Fit Deal. And it tackles some of the challenges that we can say that traditional sporting activities have when we look at adults. Here you have a platform where sporting clubs they can sign up to, and they can come up with offers, and people at home they can look at a schedule and see when can I go. And for instance, here you have badminton from beginner to advanced. And this club invites people from the municipality to come and play for a minor fee. So this is a way of trying to make easy access for adults to try different kinds of also traditional sports facilities, and a way to rethink how we can use these sports facilities. So just in conclusion here, I have with some data and so on told you a little bit about. There are 2 different things we have to address here. Children, club members do traditional sport, use traditional sporting facilities, and when we look at adults, it's quite different. They are light users, recreational activities, and that is important when we need to rethink sporting facilities. We need to have better management of traditional sporting facilities, but we also need to look at the outdoors, and I know that will be quite good example of how you can address the outdoor, how you can make facilities, and we'll also go and see some in the afternoon. And then of course also how can you make some of the more traditional sporting activity more accessible for adults as well. Thank you.
And there will be room for questions formally and informally after the 4 presentations. So outdoor is it's an important venue for sport and movement, and also even if it's outdoor and even if it's not traditional sports facilities, the management is also important. And of course the design and the way you make the facilities. And the next speaker is going to talk about that. The Danish Foundation for Culture and Sports Facilities, they are taking the water and the outdoor areas into many of the things they are doing, and Jakob is very well positioned to do that because he's also in his spare time, and since it's a very rich foundation he's working for, he also has a lot of spare time. He's the chairman of the Danish Surf and Rafting Federation, and they do some of the activities maybe we'll meet later today as well, such as stand-up paddling, which is very rapidly growing. So Jakob, over to you.
Thank you, Henrik, and also Peter for the presentation. Some of your data I will try to follow up on, and excuse me my cold. I hope you can hear what I'm saying. I've been working in the foundation for around 8 years. It has existed more than 20 years now. We are supported by the lottery funds and distribute around 10 million euros every year for larger and smaller projects in the cultural and sports area in Denmark. Just very briefly and shortly, it's a focus on good architecture, high functionality, getting the users and dialogue around developing the facilities, and trying to take account into what are we doing in our spare time today and in the future. So very much cooperating also with EDAM and around these data collections. Here are some of the water sports projects we have developed, but it's like a broad range of sports facilities and cultural facilities that we're trying to push for. So just following up on Henrik's, on a personal note, I've been trying to push for reclaiming the water in Copenhagen for a lot of years, climbing those cranes and jumping out of them when I was younger, but also on a club level, paddling around in the harbor and trying to get all these new sports a basic ground, so also on events basis. Just to note that I also have the more practical side of how we can play in the water around in Denmark. I think it's very interesting about this, 7% of the Danish population is only doing water sports or going out and using the water, because we have around 8,000 kilometers of the coastal stretch. It's only 50 kilometers anywhere you are in the country you can go to the coast. So why is it so low? Maybe it's because of the municipalities and politicians. They need to wake up. They need to find out there's a great potential here. We have possibilities for building sustainable facilities. You don't need to ventilate the outdoors. You don't need the lights. It's just going out there and doing these support facilities. So it's troubled waters. You don't pay attention. We have people from Thisted Kommune here now. Some of the best surf spots up here at Hanstholm are maybe being demolished because they want to develop the harbor up here for more fishing boats coming in. So you want to destroy the brand of our Cold Hawaii by destroying maybe the best surf spots, natural surf spots we have in Denmark by this development. But it also comes to the rural areas where municipalities are selling the good land, the good spots to the developers, to the private owners before. This is just putting up roughly, before taking into account the possibilities for the people going down there on the harbour front and getting access. It's also old harbour bosses sitting and smoking the cigar and not waking up, living in the 17 and 80s, not looking at the potential about the new sports, but still looking at the water as an industrial area. So it's taking so much time for the new sports to get in there, so the regulations and rules are not up to date. So we need the politicians to move forward on this, and not like be 10, 15, 20 years behind. Then what we can do in the foundation is to help try to solve this around the access problems. How do we get down to the water? Some places it is difficult, and we have very good examples of this, and also people around are working with this. But there's a lot of different areas that are troubled about this going to the water and using the water. But we have potential. We have harbour extensions. We have going from the industrial harbour to the recreational harbour. We've been seeing this for the last 20 years. But still a new urban development area also in Copenhagen with Nordhavn, where we're creating Esbjerg in Copenhagen. We don't see this plan go before. So we need to integrate it more from the start. But there's maybe possibilities for doing some really nice projects where we also can get the people inside and help develop this stuff. And there's a lot of activities that is possible to integrate. People are out there doing it. We see winter bathing coming back. Old photo of tough guys with the sauce opening up the ice, and this Nordic sauna culture. We see stand-up paddleboarding, new disciplines coming. Open water swimming is probably the discipline inside swimming right now in Denmark that is growing the most. It's still difficult to see the numbers on the investigations, but we see it if you go out and look at the water, if you look at what people are doing. After some years, Tryg Foundation has raising the life-saving on the beaches. Now we have a competitive life-saving competition going on. We have maybe like 500 active in Denmark. You see it in other countries as well. Surfing is growing as well. Also on the artificial tracks, there's projects going on, and also kayaking in new boats and cable track, new development of stuff that probably you can make interesting projects because also the technology is moving. So you just got to be aware and look at all these different sports that are growing, that maybe are growing in commercial sector. All these are commercial sports as well, are growing also in clubs level, but also on the light sports area that people are doing it on their own. And who would imagine that just outside here, you could see it actually this morning today, that Tangkrogen just outside here, a small wave coming in, you have one kite surfer surfing around. In 2007, around that, there was this TV program with Station 2. You have the live police station going on in the TV, and they got a call up and the camera moved down to the beach, and there was a distressed swimmer out there, panic and ambulance and everything. But it was a surfer that was out there. So on live camera, they found the surfer. And now after a lot of time, you have actually 7 different surf spots in and around Aarhus area, where people are crazy go out in the storms, and they found these small waves that are ridiculous compared to the west coast, but still they think it's fun and it's good for them. So the users, they're finding the spots, they are doing the activities on their own, and they want to move. So are you paying attention? Because they also want to make facilities and make this environment grow. And they have ideas, they are entrepreneurs, and they know how to move stuff. So do they get integrated in the planning? Are you serious enough about these transports that are moving? Another way to try to open up this legislation and area is that this cigar smoking harbor bus, he is okay giving 1-day permit. It's okay, but you cannot be here. So Red Bull goes and make this jumping off out from the Opera House in Copenhagen. You also see a lot of sailing events and other events here in Aarhus. It's different how restricted it is, but this is a way to open up. So users and municipalities start making events, because then you can test and find out how to do it on the longer term, but don't wait like 10 or 15 years, it's too long. Make a spot where you can jump out, it's pretty fun. So facilities are reclaiming the blue element. But again, don't wait, try to move on this. Also in Aarhus, you are planning for a harbor bath. What should it be like? What should be in it? And here is one of our projects in Faaborg. It's the southern part of Denmark on the island. We developed this project together with them. And the first harbor bath in Denmark was only for swimming. So now we wanted to try and integrate more things to make a place for many activities and different user groups. So actually the research now, after 1.5 years of use, it's that the winter bath and this old ladies here, and they are the one using the bath the most, coming back a lot of times. But this is also a place for meeting. People are going down there, sitting out, so it's an extension of the city area. It's very popular now. But also the part about adding a little more action, not just swimming, because the kids and the youngsters, they don't want to just swim around. They want to jump and be wild and show off. Add some functionality so the new sports can get out. And this project and also other projects, we also still learn, because there's also some mistakes in this project, but following up on it will help us to develop the next one, maybe in Aarhus together with you. This place is where we are in the south part. It also has the sheltered waters for a lot of sports. So don't just think around in the city, think about the routes going out on the tracks with all these paddleboards and sea kayaks. And also the support facilities, try to develop them so the functionality is better, covering all year round. This is an example also for the southern part of Funen, where we developed this new type of shelter. So it's getting very popular. I've had a lot of booking this first summer, attracting people and attention from Germany and from Copenhagen, people going to Funen to try these things out. 18 spots around in this area has supported the infrastructure out on the islands. And just for the evaluation, you can find it on the internet. They're very satisfied. So this is very easy for me just to say that there's a good facility. There are 3 harbor baths evaluated in this one, and you can use that to try and make your project. There are of course some problems, and we want to try to follow up on that. Actually, it's not so much a sports facility. It's more like a meeting facility, social hang-around facility. That's what people are using it for. Another project coming up further north here in Aalborg. It's a big project where they want to renovate existing outdoor swim bath. So it's used now as a swimming facility. It's worn down, so now we upgrade it together with the municipality and install all kind of different facilities. Playing around, Tarzan tracks, beach volleyball as well, also going out into the fjord, scuba diving, and also these storage rooms so we can lift up this for all these new types of sports and recreational activities. So this is a big project, a really big project, but also integrating all the things around. So just not making it a water sports culture, but maybe beach culture or like a rural culture around these things, integrating all because people have more interest. Maybe they want to swim, bath, play beach volleyball, and go paddleboarding. So they have a broad interest. And here, turning to Aarhus, just this last month, accomplished the sailing community here around Aarhus, a big support here for a project to 10 million euros. It's pretty impressive and nice. Different foundations among us have been supporting it, and also the municipality. So it's going to open in around 2 years. It's more like a monofunctional facility, but the sailing culture here in Aarhus is very big, and it's also an event facility that's going to support the World Championships in the Olympic boat classes in 2018, but every year they have international sailing competitions in Aarhus. So a very nice facility, but you can also maybe be a little critical. Was it also a missed opportunity for supporting all the other stuff going on down there? Or are you going to integrate that in the Harbour Bath project? Because you have a lot of activities going on just around the corner. But is this facility going to be closed for only the sailors? Why didn't we integrate all the other funny stuff we have down there? Now we have, you have put down buoys just for swimming, and you see it all around. Just put some buoys out and people go swimming around it. It's crazy, it costs like maybe 5,000 kroners to put some buoys out. And you have a sports facility where you have 200 people swimming around, maybe 500. And if you have the stairs down, then you have also the school classes and the kids going out to scuba dive. And then you started throwing rocks in the water, and suddenly there's a reef, and you have the seals and the mammals coming in, and 150 species around the corner. So it's very interesting. For cheap money, you can make interesting stuff. Here you also, or the commercial part here with the photo is combining the Sculpture by the Sea cultural exhibition with paddling around, combining sport and culture, and it's very interesting for the recreational paddleboarders to go around. There's a lot of opportunities, and we've been trying to collect all these ideas in a new project that is not built yet, but maybe it's going to be in Thisted, or maybe it's going to be Bangkok on Langeland down south, because what to do with the areas in the harbors where we have the people, and how can we support all these new sports activities that the mayors and municipalities don't have their eyes open for. So try to look at this, try to look at how people are moving out in the society. We are still talking about it's only 1% of the population, maybe up to 2% of the population that are doing all these different kinds of sports. But there's new things growing up, and maybe we're not fulfilling the potential because we're holding things down. So try to support it. Access to the water, a combination of structures that can add together depending on how many different activities you want. How do we get it to stick onto the seafront or harbor front? And maybe a combination like this for playing around. And we can get into details if you want to look at it, but it's a cable track, it's open water swimming, it's a catcall, it's rowing as well, and open water rowing. It's swimming around, it's also winter bathing. all the stuff that has nothing to do with swimming. Swimmers, they will come, but let's support all the new stuff going on, and you will have a lot of people going down there for sure. Just summing up, this is not a priority list seen from my perspective. This is what you need. So access, access, access. Remove the regulations, open up, reserve the space. So the city planners need to reserve the space from the start, and you need to invest money in that, and don't be fall down because of the developers coming in with all the money. The people want the spaces. Find solutions to get to the water. And this is like basic things that you need to support this stuff. And the last one here, activating elements. That I think you need to know that you need to have everything with you if it should be an interesting place to be. And if you want to have the new user groups, it's not enough just to put the stairs down. It's okay, but people come, but you can do much, much better. And the last thing here, and also maybe making the specialized water sports arenas will generate extremely growth on the local level. So maybe you don't have only 1% of people doing this sports, but local level here in Aarhus, you will maybe have 15% doing water sports on the seafront because you have very good facilities. You see it with the big winter bathing club has more than 7,000 members here, and it's ridiculous numbers in a local level here, and it doesn't correspond with the national numbers for this. So this is a checklist for when you're going to develop facilities, but maybe you need to start from the bottom and get contact with the users and get all the experts to throw in the ideas for this. Then you'll have really interesting projects that we also would be interested in. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, and that was a concrete challenge also to the old cigar smoking harbour buses in the old harbours. But what if you have a new harbour and a new city that is growing out of an old harbour? So that is up to the city architect to reply to that. He's in charge of the overall picture of this city. And Stephen Willersey is English by profession, so I guess he will know how to address you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. Did you ever speak? You just talk freely without a microphone.
I had the microphone behind you.
All right. Can you hear me? Yeah? Is that better?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks very much. Oh, that's nice. A bit further down, yeah. That's better. Yeah, Stephen Willersey, City Architect. I've been here 3 years, so a lot of the things you're going to see here have actually already been decided before I came on board. So it's not my fault. No, I'm very proud of this project. We're working towards making a new harbourfront and a new city, a new centre. It's called Aarhus Ø, or Aarhus East, or it could also be translated to Aarhus Island. But we say let's call it East. This is a project where we've been working very carefully about how to develop some planning for sports and recreation in the area. But this has been a bottom-up and top-down process. Just to make it clear. This is a plan, a master plan for a whole area, right in from the coastline here, all the way out here. This is the old container harbour, which is, the container harbour has been moved over here now, because the water was wasn't deep enough, and it meant we could actually develop a new city here for over 8,000 and 10,000 people. But we're working on this section here at the moment. We just want to remind us of, we're actually sitting out here, right there. We're an old Viking settlement. We've got this beautiful bay, which is this river bed, and we've got this lovely forest in the north, we've got Riskov, and down here in Moskva. So it's a very important thing to say that we've actually got a lot of natural amenities in Aarhus. It's a walkable city. It's a very livable city. And we've got this constant contact with nature. Well, I mean, it's not like Copenhagen. It's not like London. It's not like Manchester. We're actually within cycling and walking distance. It takes me 10 minutes to cycle from here into town. And everything's like that in Aarhus. So we've got a lot of public amenities. This is a picture taken in 2008. You can see the container harbour, 2007, 2008. The container harbour is still here. The old freight yard is still here. The old Ceres brewery is still here. And this is a picture taken last year. This whole area has been transformed. There's a new city being developed here for 140,000 square metres. And this new area is just starting up. And the whole harbour front has been transformed, as you'll see this afternoon, because we're going out on a bus trip later. So I won't go into too much detail on all the projects, but one of the important things when we talk about a balanced city is this thing about livability. And there's a lot to talk about, 360 degrees, sustainability, social, economic, environmental, but there's also the process part. And I think what is the important thing is we're focusing more and more upon not the ticking the boxes, but actually talking about the actual qualities we're trying to create. So this is a focus area we're working with, and we've been working together with Ramboll to develop strategies for developing this aspect. But of course, when we talk about the amenities, sports facilities are very important. And cultural activities. Sports is a culture. And we've got this cultural axis here, where we have all our museums, Dorking down here, the library, we've got the university, Via here, we've got Gammelby, the old town, Botanical Garden, but we've also got a lot of facilities and amenities out here, which also go around to the University Park up here. So there's a lot of green facilities around this area, but there's the blue area here, which is very interesting, for which the area I'm going to talk about. But I mean, I know Henrik will talk about this, the blue Rambler, or whatever we're going to call this, but we've actually forgotten that we're a river city for many years. So this area was actually covered over until recently. It's only just recently been opened up. And the amenities have become much more available, and this public area here has been transformed. It's the Mølleparken, which has been transformed into a fantastic amenity area for many different groups of people. The shared space here. But we're concentrating upon trying to talk about the actual spaces we're living in before we actually start designing the buildings. So previously it was make a building and see what we do with the rest of the space afterwards. Now we're focusing on how the hell do we make life in the city work. This is where we think it's the cornerstone of making a livable environment. So the actual more value which is created by opening up this river. I said when we did this, everyone was up in arms because you wouldn't be able to drive to the harbour anymore. But we got this instead for, and it's a kind of a typical story in Aarhus. These major changes are actually beneficial. And these things have happened recently, some years ago, where we actually start using the river more. And it's a fantastic potential, and I think we're going to use it more and more as time comes along. This last festival week in Aarhus, we've actually had solar-powered ferries going up and down the river to try and create another type of amenity use. This is a picture for a film being projected onto a waterfall. But it's also a downside, all this water, looking after ourselves in our city, because we are very, very close to being flooded recently. So we've made a lot of climate change adaptation plans. And when we're planning this whole area in Aarhus East, we've actually incorporated this protection for 100 years flooding. And also down here at the riverfront, where the river and the harbour meet, we've had to increase the level of this area to 2.5 meters over the sea level and incorporate a lot of different facilities here so to encourage flora and fauna can actually still be here, but also protect the city. So there's a pump in the ground here which can pump 60,000 cubic centimeters of water a second, both in and out. But you can't see it, it's all underground, fortunately. But this is what would happen if it was flooded. If it went over 2.5 meters, it would be like this. So recently we were very close to being flooded. This is getting close to the actual Aarhus East. This is my former boss, Lau Hai, who was the technical and environmental alderman. This is my present mayor, Jakob Bundsgaard. And just before we christened this area Aarhus East, we just changed our name from Bolleå, I said an A with a circle on top, to a double A so that we become more international. And so we went with this instead. But I think it's really nice because it just says we don't take ourselves that seriously. I think that's why I'm still here, 30 years later. No, but this whole area, this is such a massive investment for our city. This is a brownfield site. We have 34 of them in Aarhus. And this whole of this area here, and this is a result of an international planning and architectural urban design competition, which Fleirland and Peter Telk won. And we've been developing this iterative process over the last 15 years. So this is a very important investment. We're working on this area now. This area here has been developed. The square has been changed at the moment, transformed. Dockens here, Nevites, Bestseller here, and this whole recreative path, amenities path connecting the northern part of the city and the lower part, southern part. This is a recreative and amenity space which will connect the city. So the public engagement and activity in the area, it follows the old coastline. So it's kind of telling a story at the same time. There's an awful lot of different principles being used on this planning of this area, but quite importantly, it's all these activities which take place in the public realm. And we can talk about this in more detail, but it's a part of making our city a healthy city, where we would like to activate one of the reasons why we're here in Aarhus, the sea and the water and the river, connecting it to the hinterland of Brabant and so on and so forth. As part of the planning, we lifted this area out here 3.5 meters over the sea level. We've actually developed this, we're building a light railway line in the second stage out here. And this amenity space here is one of the absolute best that we have in Aarhus. I'll come back to it in more detail. But the red ones are the projects that are in process at the moment. The green one here I'll come to now, more detail, but Basin 7. But these are part of our branding pictures of Aarhus East. You see there's a lot of social and sports activities going on here. And a lot of this is bottom up. It's nothing to do with us in the council. We've helped create the space where it can happen, but it's organisations which are running it themselves now. But it's also an important destination for cyclists. So we're also a very cyclist. Aarhus is the city in Aarhus which has on a very steep curve in terms of the greatest number of new cyclists commuting into Aarhus in the whole of Denmark. I think Copenhagen has been well on its way and got so many, but Aarhus is very close. So this thing about destinations is really important, because when we're developing a new city for 8,000 people, it doesn't happen overnight, but we're actually building a city where normally it would take 100 years, but we're doing it in 10 years. So a lot of things are happening simultaneously. But this area here, 3.5 meters above sea level, and the wave breaker out here, 40 meters out in the water, has created a whole new biodiversity out here. There's crabs, there's oysters, there's mussels, and there's seals. But it's become a very popular place to go for a walk. And this is very important in terms of healthy city. But when you talk about that out there, you also have to talk about this in the middle, because this is a very important hinge between the harbourfront and the city. So, talk about destinations. There's 120,000 people come here every day, every week, every month. It's a railway. It's going to be a light railway station here. There's 1,000 parking spaces. It's our new library and community centre. So it's very important in terms of planning. So this is a piece of art from Sculptures by the Sea. It just got vandalised recently, so we're in the process of repositioning that. I'm going to do that together with my colleagues in Kultur and citizen participation process. But this is it's like a I Love Amsterdam picture. This is one of those pictures where you take a picture. I'm in Aarhus, and I like this sort of thing. This is helping us create an identity in Aarhus East, which is having teething problems getting going. But we've got this fantastic amenity area, the Ladbrokes area, and then there's Rasmus has just arrived here, is responsible for looking after this sport and what's it called in English? Sport and free time? Amenities. Pleasure area here. This is a neighbour to this beautiful area called Aarhus East. Now we're developing this city out here. I mean, if you talk about sustainable development, we're talking about densification of the city. This is just one of my key points. A typical suburban house, you have 3 people living in a house for 150 square meters, so each person takes 50 square meters. Now, I think there's a lot of singles living in them, so they have 150 square meters per person. Here, you have 5 square meters footprint on your site. So it's a completely different type of city we're developing. So we're trying to avoid building more single-person houses in Aarhus, focusing on these areas. But here, these are some of the pictures. This is the most recent finished here by Brabant Borley, the Housing Association, where you have this fantastic view into the inner city. But when we talk about destination, this is from Paris. And when we had the recession in Aarhus, a lot of the projects in the Aarhus East was almost going bankrupt, some of them did, and started work going very slowly. So instead of doing a lot of advertisements, some clever people thought, well, why don't we try and invite people out there because we're making social amenity space. So we made this beach bar. It's had 3 different locations now, because each time a new development comes, it moves it to a new place. And it's just built up of 8 containers and a series of tribunal sitting areas made of wood. And it's prefabricated so you can move it around. And you just put the sand in the lorry and move it away and bring it back in. This has become a destination. On a summer's day, you can come down here, there's 2,000 people. It's an amazing attraction. I mean, you have to take care of taking photographs, someone like me, because you get seen as being a dirty old man. So you have to be very discreet. There's just some atmosphere, but they've all these volleyball courts. I mean, I think we talked about obesity earlier in England and the sports facilities. You don't see any obesity here. You actually have got to be quite a beautiful person. It's where they all are. And I can tell you they don't have shirts on or anything. It's a fantastic place. But then again, you've got this small football arena, street football and sand. This is a new addition this year and it's become very popular. So it's very good. It's fun. And people are here because they want to be together. I've been thinking about, we've got all these beaches around, just outside the window here, and then Rigsgaard. And this is just an additional service because it's for a lot of people from here, not just students, but mostly. They want to be a kind of urban, in an urban setting. So this idea of making sports facilities, you have to make it so interesting, sexy it up, make it interesting to come. And they've been very good at this, I think, these people who run this service. The other thing is it's become acknowledged. This is St. Hansaften evening, midsummer fire, bonfire. The town mayor, my alderman, gave a speech here this year. So it's a destination. People come out here, it's recognised. And they make really good gin and tonics. This is another destination. It's Sallingfond who has financed this. It's Dora Mandrup who's designed it. We'll go out there this afternoon, have a look at this. But it's a viewing platform. You can actually see these every now and then. Fantastic. The quality of water has become very, very successful, very clean. The permanent out here is it's a historical destination in itself. Very popular. All age groups come out here. But it's been important for developing this area that we've seen the great advantage that the area out here has been changed its image. Of course, there's more buildings being built, but the idea that all these people are coming down there for these social sports activities has been an amazing plus. So I'd like to talk about a process, this area here, which is being planned at the moment. When I came in as city architect, I didn't understand the scale of the area, so I took the plans for our city in red and plonked it on top of the same scale of Ørsted. And it's quite shocking actually how close they are in terms of scale. The big differences are that it's not Amager that runs in here with grass and trees. We've got a really big basin full of water. So it's even more windy than it is over the Ørsted. But I've tested sizes of spaces. This is Åboulevarden. This is Banegårds Square between Bestseller and Nevitas. Møllepark and right at the end. So it's been a useful exercise, but I think a lot of people got a shock in our system. So we started talking about how can we rethink the planning of the area, because one of the other things is we've had difficulties encouraging people coming out there to make office space and make public amenities. So we made a new type of procurement route where we made 6 dogma rules for things that need to look at. For example, the scale of the project, the landscape, the types of people living there, the traffic, and also which type of public amenities we could have here. So the winning team was this guy here, Bjarke, together with Rune Kilden, Jan Gale and Michael Mortensen, and they are helping us develop a development plan for this area. But this is their plan. They're making a path which is like a promenade, and on that they're positioning a new winter bath as a bathing facility, which was already planned as a 40 million kroner project from Sallingfond. That's been integrated into this plan now. The beach bar has been transformed. The 8 containers are here, but they're building this bar, the beach out in the sea, a theatre, and these small facilities here, but cafes and restaurants. But over here, all those sports facilities have been positioned next to this area where there's 390 students and 190 more moving in here. So this becomes a fantastic area for a student area, for sports facilities. So you can see all these public amenities positioned on top of each other, next to each other, and they're committed to make these before they actually get the permission to build 20,000 square meters of housing here. So they have a consortium of restaurateurs, they have a theatre group committed to making this facility. It's really important. So that the ideas behind those social amenity areas, which are important for making a sense of community, are being integrated into this plan. All these edges, these edge zones around the areas here, making street life are being planned very carefully by people like Jan Gale. And of course, environmental studies are being carried out too, so that we try to make areas which are less windy. But these are some of the images of which Bjarke and his office have prepared to help us explain the story. Of course, these are some early ones. It's slightly different now, but it's the same theme, same ideas. And I think you see these recreational spaces, the amenity spaces are very important for creating a city in balance. And I think it could be really exciting. But whilst we're waiting for some of these other developments, we've made these areas where there's 300 people making these small gardens. And it's all part of this whole scenario of making public space accessible and activating people. People come from all over to do this. And right next to this is a 500 metre long swimming area for triathlete swimming. And of course, we just heard about this fantastic project. But we've also had some areas where we've planned to try and encourage more families to come with their kids. So we have a bit of waste space whilst we're waiting to finish another development. So we made a play area. Unfortunately, I've never seen a kid on it. So it's a bit of a downsize, this one. But there's a lot of activity out on this promenade here. And admittedly, this is a bottom-down project. There's a small group who wanted to make this. It's become a destination itself. Very popular swimming area out here, 500 metre long. Also afternoon swimming, evening swimming, and developed right next door, they're preparing permanent changing facilities and toilets and things like that. Beautiful views from the top of the buildings, but look at that. We made a temporary skater area. Very popular. And it didn't cost very much. I mean, you talk about street. I mean, this is really street. It's right on the street. And finally, this, you know, I'm trying to make a situation where this can actually become a permanent part of our city. But it's this where art and architecture and landscape and water meet, where people are encouraged to come out and go and visit a place like this. People are willing to walk from the inner city all the way out there, or park their car and come out and see a thing like this. It's not just going out to see Bella here and do that walk. This becomes something else. It's an additional thing. And I can't help talk about this when you come down to Dorking, the play areas on the platform. 4,000 square metres of public space covered over by roof. You have to experience it. It's absolutely awesome. I did a guided trip, and I made everyone, these adults, of course, I made them all go. It's like an outdoor bounds course. I said you have to go, you have to play on the whole facilities. This is financed by Selling Fund as well. But there's also our buildings too. This is designed. This is a Goosebane, the freight yard, cultural production centre. The roof itself is very steep. It's not accessible for wheelchair users. However, it's a very important destination itself. You come up and get a very good view of the city. But you actually get your pulse up, I tell you, when you're going up there. And of course, Morsco, out in the landscape, fantastic landscape project. And I must say, I hope you'll all come back again in 2017, where we're the host for the European Capital of Culture 2017. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, and obviously we are going out in the area. We have it's a short bus trip, and we have 2 or 3 stops where so it's not that you're going to sit in the bus for 3 hours, so don't worry about that. Last speaker is about how do we get this bottom up, and how do we make it live, how do we make community sport grow, and that is of course one of the responsibilities of the sports council, the local sports council. And Henrik Stampe is the manager of the local sports council. So he will have the last say, and then we will take the bus afterwards. And there will be sandwiches that you can take, grab and fly. And of course we will give you 10 minutes to go out there afterwards. So we have time enough to make it all. And also if you want to bring your luggage, some of you are going home, then you can. We will leave the dock the latest 3:30, so you can be at the railway. If you have a train to catch at 4, you can easily catch it.
Yes, my name is Henrik Stampe. As Mr. Brandt told you, I am General Manager of Sports Council here in our city, Aarhus. And we are a local organization, and I am representing 435, I think I can walk around here, 435 sports clubs in our city. Can you hear me? I thought I could avoid that. Representing 435 sports clubs in our city, and that's about 83,000 members of the sports clubs. About 40 of these clubs are clubs who are related to water sports, and they are located, most of them at our harbor, but some of them along the coast in our community. Actually, I had planned to show you 2 videos, but the internet is rather slow, so maybe I will show you one, maybe. If I cannot, it's you're in for the first one. The Blue Rambla, we know that the word Rambla from of course from Barcelona, but it's a word covering a boulevard, a road, an alley where things happen. But we cannot say that we are from A to B here, but we are covering a bigger area, and we are covering an area from the Lake Brabrand, placed west from the city. You can start with if you want to. The River Aarhus, and harbor, and of course the coast from north to south. We've got a lot of water where we can plan and do activities. And I just keep quiet and we can watch this.
Byens åndehuller har noget for alle, uanset alder og fysik. Og hvad end det er, at udfordre dig selv, eller at finde din indre mentale.
What we are trying to do here is to show what are we covering, what's the Blue Rambla covering. And as I told you, the lake, the city. Maybe you had already visited the center of the city where the River Aarhus is running through with the restaurants. This stair, we'll come back to that one. You have to know your possibilities, we say in our presentation here. And of course we know the possibilities in Aarhus, but maybe we're not using them. So we are trying to focus. We're trying to focus on the possibilities. On the water, into the water, under the water, whatever. But not as a water activity only, but as you can see there, for mountain bikers, for runners who run along the River Aarhus or in the woods. And we're trying to make activities, trying to make facilities that is not like we think ordinary facilities as sport halls or big rooms for that. We're trying to create the activities where we have some open spaces. Right now, you know, our harbor is a building site, and this building site gives us a lot of space, but only temporarily. So we are trying to create facilities where we actually can do it, and the Blue Rambla is an organization who cooperate with our sports clubs. They've got the ideas for what to do. We've got the organization and we've got the money for these activities. And it's essential for the future sports facilities that the sports clubs are part of it. It's essential for that. I'm sure that we cannot give this to professionals, to fitness centers, to whoever wants to make some money. We have to cooperate with the sports club. The ideas must come from the sports club. In Aarhus, we have got a lot of traditional sports clubs who are building their sports on old traditions, like rowing, like swimming, indoor swimming right now, and building on sailing. But there is a lot of new sports coming up. Stand-up paddlers, and it's one of them. The kayak, the kayaking is a big sport in Denmark right now. For a couple of years ago, we saw people with kayaks and canoes on the roof of the cars, trying to find some place where they could put in their kayaks. But now they are organized in sports clubs. They're organized in maybe 4 to 6 sports clubs in our city now. And that means they have got an idea, they started an organization, they started a sports club, and from there we have to develop our future sport on the harbor, along the river, and at Lake Brabrand. We are not representing the professional sports clubs, because they have to manage on their own, and we think they can manage on their own. But with the non-profit sports club, if we can call them so, we think that we can, at the year of 2017, we can have some more permanent facilities. We think we can have some facilities along one of the wharfs. Stephen showed you the stair as we paid for and gave to our sports clubs. This is an open water swim lane that is created by the sports clubs. It's 500 meters long. There are some of these boys, as Jakob told you about, and we created the stair together with the sports club. And that stair is actually a facility. And that means that you don't have to pay millions for facilities. You can just use the good ideas from the sports club. They wanted a platform where they could stand, where the divers could put their things, where maybe you could take on your wetsuits, but it's in a facility, and it's used today. A lot of divers are using it. For scuba divers and snorkeling divers are using them today, and our community, they changed the environment so that a lot of new species, fish, lobsters, and other things are nearby the wharf, and some of the clubs, the diving clubs, are using this facility. They are inviting schools, citizens of the city, to come and see, and they will take care of it. Two of our sports clubs, a triathlon club and one of our swim clubs, they are 2 times a week, each spring and summer, are inviting the citizens of our city to come and use the open water swim lane. We had more than 100 each time this summer. It was a huge success. And Stephen showed you some pictures from the harbor where, what we call pleasure, where the sailing boats that were in that dock, if we can call it that, most of our sports clubs are located. And they are a part of the Blue Rambler, and the Blue Rambler are pushing them with money and good ideas to develop their activities and their facilities. And they are opening up for the citizens of the city, and they are trying to create new activities. For example, one of the sailing clubs have invited one of the sub-clubs to be a part of their club. Facilities and money and organization. It's easy, and it's a result of the work in the Blue Rambler. Stephen showed you a picture from our beach bar, we are calling it. Temporarily, it's at the harbor right now. Maybe it's been moved every year because of the building site. But there was a picture of a beach volley. And I am convinced if the sports club, they did not participate in this, there would be no beach volley. There would be no beach soccer, handball, or whatever, because they are organizing all these things. It's volunteers who's organizing it. So we have to use the sports clubs, the volunteers, to develop our harbor. And actually, I won't say much more because it's easier for me to show you when we're on our bus trip, when we arrive at the harbor. So, thank you.
Thank you. And since we're not that many, I think the questions, we will do that in an informal manner, so we just grab them on the bus. And when we go on the bus, Finn Lyck, where are you? He's down there. He's a local event manager trying to attract events to the city, sports events, and he uses the harbor area for that as well. And he will tell you as we go in the bus, and then we will have some stops in the new Aarhus area, and we will end up in the Dokken, which is this building that Stephen showed you, and Stephen will give us a brief introduction to that building, and then we'll go back to the hotel. So I hope you will join us, and the bus will leave 20 minutes past 1. So please be there. Thank you. The lunch will be out there, you can grab it. There will be a bag with lunch and something to drink when you go to the bus. Thank you.